This is part 3 in a series outlining organs and the systems that they're involved in within the body that go into developing symptoms, with the overarching goal of this series being to end the symptom patchwork that is our healthcare system and give everyone a chance to actually understand the players in the game of our health. Part 1 was dedicated to the liver, Part 2 was dedicated to the gut, and Part 3 will be dedicated to the pancreas. These are the organs and the systems that I see as kind of being the foundation for all of the resulting symptoms that we're dealing with today. So with the pancreas, beyond the obvious associations with diabetes, a lack of insulin, we don't talk about the pancreas enough from a blood sugar standpoint, from a cortisol and an adrenal burnout standpoint, digestive issues, and even hormone imbalances. With all of those, the pancreas is involved. Let's begin with the pancreas's core functions, and it has two main roles, one being its endocrine function, two being its exocrine function. Endocrine is related to anything hormones. It's insulin, it's glucagon, somatostatin, pancreatic polypeptide. These are all things that help regulate energy availability. That energy is stemming from its exocrine function, which is all digestion based. Because the pancreas also releases things like lipase, amylase, and proteases that help digest our food better so that when it comes time for insulin and glucagon to regulate blood sugar, they're getting everything out of food. And because the pancreas is so metabolically active, it needs a lot of nutrients. Let's talk about some of the key ones. So we've got chromium, which is going to enhance insulin sensitivity. We've got zinc, which is required for insulin production, storage, and release. We've got magnesium, which is crucial for signaling for insulin as well as the enzyme activity that is needed for helping with insulin production, but also from a digestive standpoint as well. Vitamin B1 or thiamine, this helps use glucose efficiently. This has to do with mitochondrial efficiency. Vitamin A or retinol, this supports ductal and beta cell health because there is a duct system within the pancreas that allows for proper insulin release. Then you've got things like taurine, selenium, vitamin C, and vitamin E. These are all incredible antioxidants or antioxidant adjacent that help facilitate cleaning up all of the metabolic byproducts that happen in the pancreas. And as for the hormones and peptides related to the pancreas, most people only know insulin, but the pancreas produces 4 key hormones that all work in a network to harmonize blood sugar metabolism. You've got insulin, which helps lower blood sugar and stores energy, making glucose available for cells and storing excess glucose as fat. You've also got glucagon. This works opposite insulin in raising blood sugar and mobilizing fuel instead of storing it. Somatostatin is the braking system between insulin and glucagon, making sure that one is not going too much and one is not going too little. It's keeping balance to keep our blood sugar stable. And then you've got pancreatic polypeptide, and this helps regulate digestion, our appetite, and our liver glucose output. And all together, these form a very dynamic system, one that's not just controlling blood sugar, but influencing hunger, energy, and metabolic rhythm. And then in terms of the enzymes and structural proteins coming from the exocrine part of the pancreas, you've got lipase, which breaks down fat. You've got amylase, which breaks down carbs. You've got proteases that break down proteins. You've also got bicarbonate, like sodium bicarbonate, which neutralizes stomach acid so enzymes can work. So this is contrary to the popular belief that all of our digestive system is incredibly acidic. The stomach is very acidic. However, when it gets to the small intestine, things start to become more basic. That's why the pancreas creates bicarbonate. And all of these enzymes work in a very intimate flow. They don't just show up. They're not always there. They're finely regulated. So when you get things like leaky gut syndrome or gut inflammation, a zinc deficiency, or maybe poor bile flow or lymphatic drainage, it can really upset how these things communicate with one another and self-regulate. And of course, obviously, the pancreas doesn't operate in a vacuum. It's always talking with other organs. First and foremost, the pancreas liver axis. So insulin and glucagon are talking to the liver at all times. These are the two main organs that regulate our blood sugar. So insulin and glucagon influence glycogen storage and gluconeogenesis, which is all happening in the liver. Then you've got the pancreas gut axis, where things like GLP-1, short chain fatty acids like butyrate, they all help accentuate and sensitize hormone signaling, specifically related to insulin production. You've got the pancreas adrenal axis, where cortisol is raising blood sugar, influencing the glucagon and the liver glucose output, and opposing insulin. And then opposite, insulin opposes the adrenals to help get us into rest and digest. And then you have the line of communication between the brain and the pancreas, where things like leptin and ghrelin are influencing our hunger and energy allocation within the body. And then when it comes to dysregulated signs and conditions associated with the pancreas, it doesn't always show up as diabetes. It can whisper for many years before it becomes the scream that is diabetes. Some early signs of pancreatic dysfunction: sugar crashes or constant hunger, bloating or fatty stools, especially after a fatty meal, brain fog after meals, mood swings tied to eating, cravings for sugar or caffeine. Our body then compensates, and there's an over-reliance on cortisol to keep blood sugars up. Because if we're always eating and always causing these spikes in insulin, that's always kind of going to cause these reactive hypoglycemic episodes. How does our body compensate? More cortisol. That's going to oppose the insulin and help raise and regulate our blood sugars. It can cause systemic shifts in our gut microbiome, because if we're digesting food too quickly, that's raising our blood sugars. So sometimes our gut microbiome will actually move out of sync to leave more food undigested, because the less food that's digested, the less of a spike in blood sugar. And all of this leads to more fermentation, more toxin buildup, and it puts a big strain on your liver. And once this goes on for a long period of time, then you start to get into the common conditions: type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, things like pancreatitis, enzyme insufficiency, PCOS as adjacent to metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance. And then you'll see autoantibodies as well: GAD65, ZNT8, insulin autoantibody. So if you've been chasing symptoms like fatigue, food cravings, brain fog, and inflammation, the pancreas needs to be on your watch list. And it's not just about insulin. It's about energy communication, nutrient timing, enzyme precision, and biochemical integrity.